Okay, backside of the transmission. So the output shaft has these interesting holes there that I am not sure if they allow for lubrication of the shaft splines or exactly what, but there's your seal. There's been no major leakage coming out of that. The seal looks like it's been in decent condition, so we will be replacing that while we're in here, obviously. Now, as for the transfer case, I do suspect that, as Will has stated, this special shaft here, I suspect that there's no way for oil to get past the backside of that. And the seal does look intact, although we are going to change that seal while we're in here. If I had comprehended the potential that it had only been a vent overflow situation, I might not have pulled the whole transfer case out. But I do believe that's going to make it easier to change out that seal there. Okay, now, picked up the seal kit here from Kurt. There's your part number. Super nice. They've got all the placement seals there to include your probably your rear output seal, front output seal, which will be going there. The transfer case input seal, which is right here. I'm not exactly sure why this is included. It's almost like that should belong up on the transmission tower, but obviously that's for a different application than what I've got going on here. And then a number of small gaskets and O-rings, as well as this super tiny little guy, which I do believe will be that seal right there for the selector shaft. Now, we'll be getting the front output seal addressed, pressed off, and so forth. Now, what's kind of mysterious is the rear output seal. So, gonna have to get into the service manual to figure this one out, but it does appear as though this whole back plate here is gonna have to come off, similar to what the front had to do, but we will be addressing that. Now, as far as why it was overfilled, this here is the vent hose, and there is oil passing through that. Red oil, red transmission fluid. So I popped this off, just investigating to see if there was actually another seal inside behind that shaft. There is not, so now I've got to clean that up and take care of resealing that. But otherwise, this transfer case really had no other major seepages or leakages before this trip. There is a little bit of evidence that the rear output has been seeping, but not too terribly bad. Until this trip, the front seal blew out and started slinging oil, transmission fluid all over the exhaust pipe and so forth. So, as far as the symptoms of this problem was, sorry for this super long video, but yeah, this transmission has not been topped off or service drained and filled in several years since I did it last. Now, what I may have had is there's some slim possibility that when I asked the guys at Jiffy Lube or whatever to make sure that the diffs were topped off in several years back before I put the lockers in of recent times, that maybe they added some transmission fluid, but I doubt that that's the case. So I'm quite certain that it took on transmission fluid on this trip. Now, what's interesting about it is, yes, we hot dogged this truck and for several miles at high RPMs over the beaches in Baja. And so I do suspect that as everything began to heat up, that it did probably push the fluid through the vent, is what I would have to assume. Now, so to be honest, before this trip, I did not check the fluid level, but I suppose there is a chance that the transfer case itself was low enough to be getting hot, but I don't suspect that was a big problem. So I didn't even check the fluid level until I noticed the seal leaking here. As we got back into California, I saw that it was actually leaking pretty bad, so I popped the fill cap off and stuck my finger in, could not feel any fluid. So at that point, it was not over full, interestingly enough. So this is a couple days after all that hot dogging. I added fluid, the 70, 75, 90, whatever the spec is on that, with the squish bottles, the nice little squish tubes now. I topped it off, then continued for the next day to try to get back to Utah and put 300, 400 more miles on it, and pulled over to check the fluid, knowing that it was leaking, knowing that I might need to add some more fluid again, being that it had been low before. And this time when I pulled the fill plug off, it was red fluid coming out of the fill plug. So I don't know, it's possible that maybe I squoze a whole lot of that 75-90 in there and brought it all up to a higher level than it was, and then, you know, with it expanding, maybe it began to be over full in that way. However, again, it was the red fluid is coming out. So now I've checked my transmission. It does show that it seems like it's a little over full, but I have not added fluid to that transmission in quite some time itself either. And so, yeah, it's kind of mysterious. It's kind of mysterious. So at this point, you know, I had assumed that there was just a seal in between the two that was the cause of it, but obviously that's not the case. So like Will said, unless that input shaft is cracked, which is highly unlikely, George, I think you're spot on with the fact that it probably was just super overheated the day or two prior, and then it just vented that in there, I guess. So I'm pretty sure that I'm just going to change out all the seals, the rear transmission seal, the front transfer case input seal. I'm going to service the transmission while I'm at it, drain and fill that with all new fluid, get these seals replaced, and more than likely it's going to be fine. So kind of a lesson learned here, but thanks for you guys' expertise. Appreciate it. Sorry for the long video, but super awesome that you guys would be willing to help out. And you know, just another feather in the hat of how this type of transmission works, I guess. So thanks a lot. Appreciate it. If you've got more input and feedback for me, I'm all ears. And hopefully I can get these seals, the bearings and whatnot, pressed off and the seals swapped out and get this damn truck back on the road. So anyway, thanks a lot, guys. See ya.